Welcome back, everybody, to the Beskar Bucket. As always, I'm your host, John, and it has been a while. It's been a few months since I put an episode out, but I just wanted to come at you here right at the tail end of the year to wish everyone a happy holidays and a happy new year. And I wanted to come back and recap what an incredible year 2022 has been. So I went ahead and I jotted a few things down. I've got a list here in front of me, but I was trying to think of some adjectives and a quick summary to have for this year. And there was just one thing that just anytime I thought about it, it was the only thing I could think of, and that would just be holy. This has been probably the most eventful year I have had in the realm of Star Wars in my entire life. I mean, there is so much that happened this year. And anytime I look back and think of any of the things I did this year, it's just like, wow, I really did that this year. But I like I said, I've got a list here in front of me of things that, I went back through, like Snapchat memories and photos and Facebook. And anywhere I could find notable things that I did this year. And I just kind of wanted to go through and recap them. That way I can, get an episode out before the end of the year. And, just that way it's a little milestone for me that I can just kind of look back and come back and listen to this episode and think, wow, 2022 was pretty darn good looking back on it. But yeah, so I've got everything. I wrote everything down chronologically. Excuse me. But I don't know if I'll jump around or not. Just kind of to kick everything off. Like January, I know wasn't a very eventful year. I couldn't find anything really worth noting, and I guarantee you, I'm probably missing something. And the people who know me are like, "How could you forget about this?" And to them, I say, you can remind me later about how much of a terrible person with a terrible memory I am. But really, to kick things off, I mean, February is arguably one of the biggest things that happened, and that was the founding of the Inflatable Falcon podcast. I mean, really, the Inflatable Falcon, and I love Mike, and I love Ken, and I just, I'm very grateful to have them. And to be able to do these wonderful things with them on a weekly basis for something that was just supposed to be a test for Zoe at Star Wars Geek Girl. We were supposed to be testing out this new software that she could use, and then it just turned into something like, hey, you guys want to do that again next week? Well, what about the week after that? And then it just kind of snowballed into this big thing that the three of us really love doing every week. It gives us an excuse to sit down and talk to each other every week, so I'm sure they probably need that to talk to me. So, but yeah, the Inflatable Falcon, which for those of you who don't know, we're live every Wednesday night, sometime in the 8 o'clock hour. Usually it's about 8:30 is when we go live, but we talk, a lot of things. But I'm gonna let Mike, Ken, and former me explain that now.
Hey guys, this is Mike Hinton here, part of the Inflatable Falcon podcast, and we're also part of the Unifying Fandom Network of podcasts. And I'm here with my friends, and we talk all things Star Wars.
Yeah, my name is John. I'm one of the co-hosts. We talk things from 3D printing to all the costuming groups and going to conventions in our costumes.
Yeah, and this is Ken, one of the other co-hosts of the Inflatable Falcon. And when I'm not on the forces behind Star Wars, I'm talking with John and Mike about costuming, making food, fixing our cars, and anything else related to the Star Wars universe.
So if you check us out, Wednesdays again, 8:30 we record live, and back to your show.
So, thanks guys, and former me. But, yeah, I love everything that we've done with the Inflatable Falcon, especially, like I said, coming from something that was just originally supposed to be like a one-off thing, turning into this thing that we've now done for almost an entire year now. That was so unexpected, especially with two guys that I love spending time with and talking to. it's definitely it's a real privilege to be able to sit down and talk to those guys for, you know, well, when we started it was about 3 to 4 hours. Now we're cutting it back to a more manageable listening time, but you know, still talking to those guys every week is just, it's always the highlight of my week. And if you haven't, I encourage you to go check us out. I know we're trying to get a website up now, inflatablefalcon.com. And yeah, definitely go check us out. And, you know, if you like what you hear here on the Beskar Bucket, then you'll like any of the other Unifying Fandom Network podcasts, be that The Inflatable Falcon, The Forces Behind Star Wars Geek Girl. We all have kind of a similar mindset of, you know, just bringing like positivity to the fandom, which I think in today's day and age is sorely lacking. So, it's, yeah, the Inflatable Falcon. I mean, what a way to kick off the year in the beginning of February. But then, you know, fast forward a little bit to March, then you have the Han Solo Chronicles that we did. It was the second shoot that we did. The first one was in November of 21. But, you know, once again, like getting together with Mike and Ken and Matt, Marty, and all, you know, all these guys that we know and love to be around and love, you know, we all came together for the love of Star Wars and just, you know, for an entire day. I mean, for me personally, just to tell you a quick aside, so where we film is in Western Pennsylvania, and I live in Northeast Ohio, and if you know anything about Pennsylvania and Ohio, they are two very wide states. So, in order to not take an ample amount of time off work, what I thought was a fantastic idea was to take one day off, drive across Ohio and Pennsylvania, starting at midnight to get there at 8 o'clock for the start of our shoot, and then film all day, get back in my car, and drive all the way home to make it home by Sunday so I could go to work the next day. Yeah, I'll let you chew on that one for a sec, because that was not my brightest idea. So that was probably the worst drive / 2 days that I have had in a very long time, because my original plan was to sleep the day before, which would have been Friday because we filmed on Saturday, and that didn't happen. It worked out to where I was up all day Friday and then had to leave at midnight on Friday night, drive all night into Saturday morning, film all day, no sleep, drive all the way home. And I got home at about probably 4 a.m. after waking up at 6 a.m. on Friday. So that's, 46 straight hours of just non-stop going. Again, not my brightest idea, but, you know. But yeah, just to be able to spend the day with those guys and, you know, of course, I mean, shooting a fan film, spending all day in Stormtrooper armor, I mean, come on. If you're listening to this show, you gotta at least have some resemblance of appreciation for costuming, because, I mean, that's a lot of what I do. But, yeah, just being with those guys and like I said, being in armor all day, it's one of those feelings that you just... Not everyone gets that kind of experience, and I do not envy those who can't have that experience or choose not to. It's like being at a con, but you're totally engrossed in it. Because, I mean, you're there, you're acting in front of a camera as a stormtrooper or, you know, an officer or what have you. So you genuinely feel like you're in the world. And I cannot wait to do it again. Hopefully next year in 2023. But yeah, the Han Solo Chronicles, I think Matt Matt Mickelson, the director and star, is planning on releasing the remaster of the first episode here soon. I can't guarantee that, of course, but if you need something to watch and you appreciate good fan films, definitely go check out the Han Solo Chronicles when it does release. But kind of going back to what I said about the Stormtrooper armor, that was also when I received my Waltz Trooper Factory kit. Which, I mean, not a whole lot to say there, because as most of you know, I still haven't finished it. It's been sitting mostly cut, but not assembled, in my basement pretty much since I got it. I've done a little bit of work here and there, but I get distracted very easily with other projects, as probably a lot of you know. But yeah, I feel like that's noteworthy, because I mean, everyone likes Stormtroopers. They're iconic. It's the Stormtroopers, I would argue or say, are the second most iconic thing about Star Wars, right behind Darth Vader. So I mean, let's not kid ourselves. What 5-year-old watching Star Wars didn't think, like, oh my god, I want that armor? Well, anyway, I wanted to be a clone trooper. I still do. But yeah, I find that to be noteworthy. But then fast forward a little bit later into the beginning of April, and then that's when this show, the Beskar Bucket, was the idea was conceived to start my own podcast. And you know, after weeks of toying around with names, I finally I think it was I was watching something about D&D, and I was just like, yeah, the Beskar Bucket, you know, because everyone calls helmets buckets in the costuming world, and I was like, yeah, the Beskar Bucket. It's like, you know, the prancing pony from, like, Lord of the Rings. It's got that, like, medieval feel to it, which I don't know if I've actually told this story on the podcast before. But that's right. I was talking to one of my friends about the first time I ever played D&D. It was a friend of mine wanted to kind of show me the ropes, and, like, he wanted someone else like his age to play with, and so it was just he and I, and we got together, and, you know, he was the DM, and he was kind of showing me, like, how to play and whatnot, and we got to this town, and I had bought a tavern, or I'd saved a city, look, it was 10 plus years ago. I don't remember the details, but I do remember that I had bought this tavern and renamed it the Squinting Halfling. And Moody, if you're listening, which I highly doubt you are, but yeah, your D&D campaign and the conversation that we had about it was the inspiration for the name the Beskar Bucket, because I had remembered the Squinting Halfling, the Prancing Pony from Lord of the Rings, and I just thought that was a good fit for a name of a podcast, and kind of a gimmick, if you will, for the show. Hence, obviously, that you can obviously hear the tavern music playing in the background right now. So, but yeah, so April, I think it was probably April 10th, 11th, 12th is when I had the idea to call it the Beskar Bucket. I knew I wanted to start a podcast for a while, but nothing was ever really fleshed out until Mike and Ken had really pushed me towards starting one. So we, I started toying around with names, and like I said, we landed on the Beskar Bucket. And then I was trying to figure out, like, okay, well, what do I do? I mean, I can't just sit here and talk at a camera or a microphone for, an hour and 15 minutes and not run out of things to talk about. Little did I know that, now I can pretty much just chat with myself, which in and of itself is an odd quality to have in a person, but looking back, I probably should have known that I can carry on a conversation well enough, let alone with myself. But then I had the idea of like, okay, let's focus this around like people in the community and like people that I know and like kind of introducing people to Star Wars or introducing people in the community to other people. So it's definitely been an interesting journey so far. I've kind of strayed off the beaten path for that, but would definitely it's one of my goals for 2023 is to kind of get back to the creator based streamline, if you will, and still kind of put people on a showcase to show off like what they do, what they have in the Star Wars community, if that makes sense. But yeah, so the Beskar bucket, that was my April, and then May was when the first episode was released. My friend Jess and I had the idea, he was watching Star Wars for the first time and was like, hey, why don't we get on my podcast and talk about it? So obviously you've probably heard that episode by now. I think it's probably my most popular episode, if the anchor numbers are correct. But yeah, so we sat down and chatted about his experience watching the prequels for the first time, and it was a very fulfilling moment to actually like sit down and do this with a purpose and like actually like go out and do it. It was very satisfying for me. I don't know why, but it's one of those things where it's like, I am I'm very guilty of like, yeah, I really want to do this, and like putting some sort of plan into motion and then just never following through with it. And being 9 episodes in now, technically 10 if you count my introduction episode, but like actually, like I said, following through with it and actually doing it, and being here 7 months later, and actually still actively trying to figure out ways to do a show, even though, I mean, like I said, I took a few months off, and we'll get to why here in a little bit, but it's nice to actually have that thing where it's like, yeah, I did that. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. And I didn't half-ass it, so to say. But so the first episode of the Beskar bucket, and I think I'm very proud of all 8 episodes, and then hopefully soon to be 9 that I've put out so far, and hopefully I get a bit more regimented in the new year. But and then the only other thing I had for May is, and this really doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars, but it's a little life achievement for me, if you will, is I bought my Corvette. For those of you that don't know, I am a big GM performance guy. I don't know why Chevrolet has just been the brand that I stuck with, but I traded in my 2017 Camaro and got myself a 2006 Corvette. Because that's one thing my dad and I have in common. That's we both are suckers for the Corvette, and so yeah, the reason I say that it's not really related to Star Wars is because it is the Skywalker Corvette because of my license plate. I will say that. So it does technically have a connection to Star Wars. I'm not totally getting off the rails here. But yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's like, since I was a little kid playing like Gran Turismo, like I would always like picture myself, one day buying this, super shiny red Corvette, specifically the C6, which is what I have for those of you non-car enthusiasts. But, playing like Gran Turismo or Forza or whatever the racing games were, they would have like the Dodge Viper and then the Corvette. And I always leaned more towards the Corvette because I liked how they looked and they were fast, and I was a kid, and clearly I haven't grown up. I dress up like an action figure for fun. So eat that. I don't know. But yeah, so I bought the Skywalker Corvette in May, and then in June well, I guess technically May/June, I started redoing my Mandalorian armor, which is kind of my claim to fame there for a little bit. If you could even call it that. I wouldn't go out of my way to say that I'm famous. But I do have a little bit of a TikTok following because I have my Mandalorian armor. And I was, after being around 501st guys for the short amount of time I was up to this point, I got really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-conscious about how my armor looked. Because I knew that it was, there were a few, like, I got the gist, but it wasn't as accurate as I would like it to be. And I obviously, like, there are still things that I don't care to correct because I'm not going for Legion approval or anything like that. Like, this is just like a fun for me costume. But like, there were certain things that I was like, ugh, I don't like that chest plate or the gauntlets or the knee plate or anything like that. So I went through and I redid it, and I gave everything a fresh coat of paint to make it the right color and the right like sheen. So I then got to debut the redone armor at Colossal Con this year. And that was super fun, because I got to go with my buddy Chalker, who had never been to a convention before. Granted, Colossal Con is probably a bit much for two people that really aren't the biggest into anime. So it was a bit much. But Colossal Con has always been one of my favorite cons, even though I don't particularly care for anime. Like, I watch a handful, but nothing. I wouldn't go out of my way to say that I'm a fan. I appreciate the medium, but not to an extent where I would say I'm a fan of it. But yeah, like, taking that out and like introducing him to like convention culture was a really fun thing. I love taking people to their first con, because like, I've been, clearly, and seeing their reaction to like, oh my god, there's so many people, and it's like, yeah, we're all here for the same reason. We're all nerds who like to walk around and look at shiny things. And, you know, a solid majority of people, or a solid chunk of people, I wouldn't say the majority, but, you know, a lot of us like to dress up as characters for fun. So I love taking people to their first convention. It's definitely a very proud moment of mine to get to see that reaction and induct them into this cult, if you will. But now we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of where this year really took an upkick, because at the end of June, the day after my birthday, we did an armor party, where I got to hang out with Mike and Ken and a lot of the other guys that we know in the 501st, and you know, we built Tusken Raider masks, which that alone would have made the weekend, but it is kind of overshadowed by that same day I got my Kylo Ren costume from Marty, a mutual friend of ours, in all of the different costuming groups. And that's really what kind of kicked off this whole year, because what had happened is I was talking to Mike about, like, yeah, I really want to join the 501st, but, you know, obviously, like, I want to do a Stormtrooper because I already went through and paid the money for the costume, but, like, there's only a handful of costumes that I would, like, I really, really would want to do. And, you know, one of them's Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith, obviously. And then the other was Kylo Ren from The Force Awakens. And it was like fate stepped in, and Mike was like, oh, you want to do Kylo Ren from The Force Awakens? I know a guy who's selling his costume. And it's like, oh no. So I messaged Marty and I was like, hey, Mike said you might be selling your Kylo Ren. Like, I would probably be interested if you were, because, like, I know you do really great work on your costumes, and, like, if you're getting rid of it, I wouldn't say no. Kind of hoping he would be either throw out this astronomical number that was, you know, nowhere near within my budget, or he would just say that he wasn't really interested in selling it. However, I had set a number in my head where I was like, okay, if he says anything above this, I'm gonna have to say no. And he was right under that number, and I was like, oh my god, that's reasonable. Granted, the number was arbitrary. He would have been hard. Like, it really would have had to been an insane amount of money for me to turn it down, because I love that costume in general, but knowing it's his and he had put so much work into it and it's so well crafted, I knew that I wouldn't be able to turn it down. But being that he's a fantastic person and one of my favorite people that I know, he gave me a great deal on it, and you know, he made sure like everything would fit and how I could make it work if it didn't. But I knew I couldn't say no, and of course Mike just had to chime in and be like, well, I know a guy. And I know he's listening to this right now, and to you, Mike, I have to say thank you, and I hate you for giving me that push that I needed to take my first step into a larger world. But, so, June was it was the best birthday gift I could have received, was this introduction, this taste into the 501st that I knew I was going to need in my life, because I crave that community-esque environment where it's, you know, we're all here because we like to dress up as these costumes and we like our costumes to look good. So again, kind of moving into the next month, and as you guessed, in July I joined the 501st, which is, oh my god, that is, just saying it out loud just gives me chills. That it's one of those things where I had always, like, even from just seeing them at conventions and, like, you know, hearing about them, it was just like, I want to do that one day. I would love to just be in a group of people that, like, all love dressing up as Star Wars characters, and you know, like, finally meet people that, like, I wouldn't meet unless it was for Star Wars. And, like, most people know, I am an introvert, I am a homebody, I'm not good at talking to people. And it's one of those things where it's like, it would be so nice to, like, know people who love Star Wars just as much as I do, that are, you know, basically in my backyard. And it was, I can't even put it into words. Like, getting that email, like, it, you know, the approval email, it, like, I was elated. I could not wipe the smile off my face for hours and days, where it's just like, wow, I'm a part of this now. I mean, like, everyone likes to throw their lawn darts at the 501st and the Rebel Legion and the Mercs, because they're elitist and you know, they hold everyone to such a high standard. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I get the whole bad apples thing, but, like, the welcome that I received by everyone was, it's so warm and so friendly, and I've made friends in the Legion in the short few months that I've been in, that, like, I really appreciate just, like, again, having someone to talk to that likes Star Wars just as much as I do. And to me, for someone who didn't have a lot of friends growing up and who always found it hard to talk to people, it's nice having those people that aren't afraid to talk to you, that understand that, like, it's hard to find people, because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all nerds. Like, we all like Star Wars. It's not a shocker to think that some of us are introverted and have a hard time talking to people and getting out of their shell. So I find it to be one of the most fulfilling things that I've done, is joining the 501st and taking that first step and going out and meeting these people that I love to hang out with and see in costume and just to hang out with. But it's one of my biggest life achievements is actually putting forth the effort and joining. And like I said, as much as people like to to take shots at the Legion and everything. I get it. Like there are some people that are elitist out there. It's not that unfathomable. But I have not met a single person that, has looked at me and been like, well, you can't really, this is wrong, or, you shouldn't do this. But like I said, I get it though. There are always people in any community you see that, there are people that, they're not great people, but, I think from everyone that I have met, from not only the Ohio Garrison, but like with Mike and Ken and everyone else over there, I have not met one person that I was like, ugh, you kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Even so far as like just, I don't think you're that great of a person, but I haven't seen anyone that's, elitist, if you will. I mean, yeah, we hold ourselves to a high standard because we want the best quality, but I haven't seen anyone that would talk down to anyone else because like their costume's bad, or because, any other reason. But I'm getting on a soapbox. I'm rambling. But then kind of moving forward to August, still a lot of this is going to be 501st stuff. Just from here on out, if you don't like the Legion, I'm sorry, because there's it's not all about the 501st. There are a few things sprinkled in here that aren't, but there's quite a bit. But in August, I had gotten my trading cards done, which as a lot of people who know me know, I am a slut for merchandise. I like trinkets. I like small things. I am a goblin. I can't explain it, but I love it. So I got my trading cards done, and I love them. I love handing them out to people any chance that I get, because like, that's me. I'm on a trading card now. Because, you collect trading cards when you're a kid, and most people now into their adulthood. Not something I got into, but, it happens. But, like, seeing my face and my costume and me on that trading card, it's just, it makes me giddy. I love to see it. But then and also in August, and again, nothing Star Wars related technically, but like I started a new job, and I finally got out of an environment that I wasn't happy in, and I found something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. So it's my mental health has been a lot better since I started my new job, but that's also kind of why the content has been lacking. Like I've been focusing on this new job, and then kind of to segue back into September, like I had my first troop with the 501st, which that was a ton of fun, and I got more merch done, I got more troops in, and like that's kind of why the content has been lacking, because like I've been devoting a lot of my free time to not only the Inflatable Falcon, but also the 501st, like I said, my new job, and just trying to do a lot of things for me. And sometimes when you're doing things for your own mental health, you kind of forget about the other stuff, and you leave stuff behind on accident. And unfortunately, the Beskar bucket, I hate to admit it, but like it got kind of left by the wayside. It's not that I forgot that it existed. It's just it's, oh god, I could have done an episode on that, or I could have sat down for an hour and recorded something. But and I totally blank out and I forget, because I've got all this other stuff that I'm doing and got going on, that with the little amount of free time that I have left, it's just like, oh, I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy to sit down and record, and then by the time that I do recharge my batteries and I do get some rest in, then I'm like, oh well, now I don't have time. Now I got to keep moving, and it's, and I do feel bad because, like, this is something that this is very fulfilling for me, that I know I went through and I stuck with it. I did take a little bit of a mental health break between when I switched jobs and, started trooping, but now I'm kind of getting back into it where it's like, oh yeah, that would make a really good episode idea and whatnot. So I apologize for the lack of content, and I'm sure at the end of this I'm probably going to apologize again. Who knows? In however long it takes me to get there, I will, we'll see. I don't know. I'm an apologetic person. I'm sorry. I can't help it. But like I said, my first troop was in September. And what? I can't believe that I got to go to a regular ass event and dress up as Kylo Ren with Director Krennic and stormtroopers and Darth Vader and a Jawa and an Imperial officer. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh my god, this is really happening. Like, it's not like it wasn't a convention, it was a casino night, and it was heroes and villains themed, so they asked us to come out. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh my god, this is just like day-to-day, like, regular stuff that's going on right now. This isn't like a bunch of nerds congregating together. This is just real people, regular people that, we are here for them. And it's not like, and we're the only ones, well, I guess they were also kind of in costume, just as part of the themed event, but like, it wasn't a convention. But it was just, it was so surreal. It was, you only get your first troop once, but I could not have picked a better event, because the people I went with, I've stuck around, well, kind of latched onto them. They're kind of stuck with me, but like, I love the people that I trooped with, and of course, now that I've met people, for those of you in the Legion, that's when the other people's trading cards and the other people's patches and coins and everything start rolling in, and it was the beginning of the end when people started handing me things, because now I need to collect all of it, because I'm like I said, I'm like a goblin. I like my treasure. So then I got my patch / coin designs made up, which, if you follow me on TikTok, that's the design is my profile picture, which I'm blanking on his name right now, and I feel horrible because I am. But I got that designed, and I still need to get my coins and my patches made as soon as I have some extra money. But, like I said, I started collecting more trading cards and patches and stickers and everything. And I kind of learned, like, how most people operate in the 501st. And that was just really eye-opening to, like, see, like, okay, well, this is kind of how things are done. And then, like, having, like, the post-troop dinner was so much fun. And, like, just, again, sitting down with these real people, these regular people that also enjoy dressing up as Star Wars characters for fun in public. And it was just, again, one of the most surreal things that I could have ever imagined that I would actually be doing in real life. So, yeah, and then October, November, again, nothing really super noteworthy other than, like, I'm trying to get a troop in every month, so that way, like, I don't fizzle out, and I can, obviously get as much time in costume as I can. It is the most fun, is going out and seeing the smiles on people's faces that, oh my god, that's Kylo Ren, or oh my god, that's Darth Vader, like, can I get a picture, like, oh my god, you gave me a trading card, stuff like that. It's just, it's mind-blowing. And again, anyone who does the costuming experience, they know that it's the most fulfilling thing. When you see the smile on someone else's faces because you made their day, because you decided to go out and dress up, I love it. It's the most satisfying thing on the planet, of just seeing their smiles and seeing how they light up. And Mike knows, I talk about it all the time. There is a picture of when we went to Steel City Con in December of 21, where there was this little kid with a Grogu hat on, and I was dressed as the Mandalorian, and oh my god, his eyes lit up, and it was the most adorable thing. And I have a picture of me kneeling down and like giving him a fist bump, and like his mom was like, "Oh my god, thank you so much," blah blah blah. And it was, again, it's the most fulfilling thing on the planet just to see that. And especially kids are look, me personally, I don't like kids. I'm sorry, I can't. I don't want any of my own. It's just, I'm not good with kids. But the second that I'm in costume and I am Din Djarin or I am Kylo Ren, oh my god, I love it. It just, when they see you and their eyes light up and the biggest smile on their face, because to them, you're Kylo Ren or you're Din Djarin, you're whatever costume you do. You're not, John Scalise from Northeast Ohio. You are from Star Wars. You are Kylo Ren, and I love it. I know I'm getting on a soapbox, and I tend to ramble. If you've been listening this long, you should know that by now. But yeah, like I said, October, November was just more troops. I won't bore you with the details, even though they were very fun. But if you want to hear more about that, again, I gotta plug the Inflatable Falcon. It's my second home. So we talk about, anytime we have a troop, we do talk about it. We do have troop time. So go listen to the Inflatable Falcon. We are on YouTube. We are soon to be on all podcasting platforms. I know Mike is working really hard right now to export everything to Anchor to try and get everything out there. But, and like I said, inflatablefalcon.com. By the time you're listening to this, it should be, I know it's active right now as under construction, but depending on when you're listening to this, the full-fledged thing might be out. Who knows? And then, really, this month, December of 2022, will probably go down as arguably one of the best months I've had in the last few years. June, July, they're up there. But December of 2022, oh my god. Just to start at the beginning, I went to GalaxyCon, which that was the first convention that I had actually trooped with the 501st. That was a sizable convention. For those of you that don't know, GalaxyCon is a very large convention in downtown Columbus at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. They rent out 3 of the 4 halls, and woof, so many people, so many pictures. It was, and I only went for one day. Now looking back, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I know I'm doing this the following weekend. I'm only going to do one day, and I really wish I would have done all 3, because it was some of the most fun that I have had in a very long time. And just being around everyone and, meeting people from all the different squads in Ohio, because Ohio is divided up into 4 squads. And meeting people that I only know through the forums and the Facebook groups and all that. And, finally meeting some of these guys in person was so much fun. And we had a new member there that it was his first troop. And I was like, damn, you picked a hell of a troop for your first troop. Mine was pretty low-key. His was massive. But, so GalaxyCon was fantastic. Not only that, I had 2 friends that worked for the catering company that was hired for the convention. So I got to see them, which, I don't get to see them very often. And seeing them, and seeing me in costume, it was so much fun. I loved every bit of GalaxyCon, but unfortunately it is overshadowed by the following weekend, which was Steel City Con, which Steel City Con is my favorite convention to go to. It is a small convention with a big convention feel. Mike and I will tell you all the livelong day about how fantastic Steel City Con is. But even though it was Steel City Con, that is not the only reason that it was the best convention that I've been to. I have finally gotten my dad into costuming, and willing to join the 501st. I had purchased a Director Krennic costume that I was going to wear for Halloween and decided against it because it's white. Especially when I realized that it's actually a fairly quality costume. To which he swiped it from me because I told him, like, yeah, well, I can let you borrow my Director Krennic costume if you want to just go out for Steel City Con. And he then wanted to join the 501st and swiped that from me. But at this point, I don't care. I have pictures of my dad in costume for the first time ever. And my dad and I are very close, and I'm sure if he's listening to this, he's probably going to be rolling his eyes in the back of his head. But my dad is my best friend. I love him so much because I'm essentially a carbon copy of him. And be that a good thing or a bad thing, I find it to be a great thing. But we share so many interests and so many hobbies that this was always the elusive one for me, whereas like I could never convince him to go into the costuming space and to actually take that step into it with me. He had never been to a convention either, so convincing him to go to Steel City Con alone was a feat in and of itself. But seeing him in that Director Krennic costume and walking around with him, and him being the center of attention, he got more people to ask him for pictures than I did, which, don't get me wrong, I don't really care. I love getting pictures taken. It is very... it's one of my favorite things to do, is when someone asks me for a picture, it's very fulfilling for me. However, he was so nervous because he was like, oh, I don't want to be the only one in costume. Of course, not going to a convention before, like, you don't understand that everyone dresses up. Oh, there's a solid amount of people that go in costume. And like I said earlier, taking someone to their first convention is one of my most favorite things to do on the planet. Especially when it's my dad. Oh my god. It was so wonderful. I loved every second of it. I wish I could go back and capture that moment in a bottle and just have that forever, because he was so excited once we got there. Granted, not without its issues. I don't want to get into that. It's long story short, my fault. Almost didn't get in. But we made it. We got in, and we had a fantastic time. And him in costume and him putting all of it together, and it was super nice to see him happy and enjoying himself in something that I never thought I'd see him do with me, in be in costume, because he and I do a lot of things together. Like we have season tickets for the Browns. We're on our 5th year for that. So every Sunday we watch the Browns together. And, we always go, or at least we try and watch the new Star Wars content together, even though our schedules don't really line up. Usually I will watch something with him for a second time when he's watching it for the first time. Or, like, if I get off work and he's on his lunch break, like, we'll sit there and chat on his lunch break. So we do a lot of things together. But, again, this was always the one thing that I was like, yeah, I'm never going to get him to dress up in a costume. But now that he's super interested in the 501st, and I've actually gotten him to submit an application, my mind is blown, and I am elated that he is taking an interest into this thing that he's known that I love doing it. I mean, I've been, like, putting, closet cosplays and just like cardboard boxes for costumes together since I was knee-high. And like, now that he sees that I thoroughly enjoy doing it and he gave it a chance and he loved doing it, I mean, he's been telling me, like, I just want to get in the 501st so I can have my first troop and, like, actually go out in costume again. He has no idea. Well, he will, hopefully, when he listens to this. But he has no idea what kind of an effect that has on me. And how exciting that is for me to hear that, like, my dad, my best friend in the whole world, my companion, is taking an interest in my favorite hobby. But, like I said, 2022 has been such an incredible year. And just to cap everything off with that was so incredible. And to have that moment now. I mean, that is a core memory, for sure. I mean, there are only a few things that I can say capture that same emotion and that same feeling and that euphoria of seeing him with the biggest grin on his face when he saw a real-life R2-D2 sitting right next to him, and so many other people in this nerd culture that we find ourselves in. Like I said, there are a few things for me personally that I can look to and say, that gave me the same kind of feeling of happiness. But it's one of those things that's just incredible to look back on and to think, that actually happened. But like I said, 2022 has just been such an incredible year, and I'm sorry that I have been absent the last couple months. As you can tell, I've been so engrossed in so many other projects and things that I totally lost track of time and didn't realize that it had been 3 months since I put an episode out. But hopefully this makes up for it. I know it's a solo adventure today, but like I said, I wanted to get something out before the end of the year. And I figured that what better way to do that than to recap everything that happened this year and to release it on New Year's Eve. So hopefully when you're listening to this, you're gearing up for a great end of the year, and you're spending time with your loved ones and getting ready for 2023, because I know 2023 is going to be a great year. I have so many things that I am looking forward to next year, and hopefully things that I can start actually putting into motion and start planning on what to do. But thank you so much for sitting here for the last almost hour, for just listening to me ramble on about all the things that I did this year. But if you want to get in touch with me, I am at Gotham City _Dark Knight on Instagram, at John Scalise on TikTok, and just hit me up. Let me know what your best moment from 2022 was. And, I'd love to chat with you, and I'd love to talk shop and talk Star Wars and costuming, and, if you like sports, I could talk about sports all live long day. I mean, I always tell people I have two personality traits. That's Star Wars and sports, specifically the Browns, but, for those of you who don't live around Cleveland, Ohio, I will open it up to all sports, because I generally tend to follow them all. But that's not why you're here. You don't care to listen to a Star Wars podcast and hear about sports. But I apologize for the dogs going nuts in the background. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. But again, thank you all so much for coming to the Beskar Bucket to listen to my stories, and I will catch you on the flip side.